Hey everybody, Rosie the Rascal 15 here, and I just want to go ahead and start off this video by saying that I am looking forward to the Resident Evil 3 remake coming out this April 3rd, 2020. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited for it. I know it's going to be awesome, but that's not what this video is about. Nope, if you click the video, you read the title right. And that is simply, I have to ask, why is it so popular right now to hate on the original Resident Evil 3? And I mean it. Why? I've been seeing several people talk about the fact that Resident Evil 3, the original Resident Evil 3, wasn't really a memorable game in the series, and that it was kind of forgettable, and that nobody really liked it, and that it wasn't really that great of a game, and it wasn't really necessary for the franchise. I hear everything. People tell me it's not as good as Resident Evil 2 or 1. It wasn't really memorable. It didn't really have anything that was great in it. And all I have to ask to those people is, what the hell are you talking about? Seriously, what are you actually talking about? Have you seen the original Resident Evil 3? And I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot of people that are hating on this game don't actually know Resident Evil 3 that well. And what I mean by this is that Resident Evil 3, the original one, this was an important game. And I do mean it. This was a very important game for the franchise because it pretty much added a lot of elements gameplay-wise that were pretty groundbreaking for Resident Evil. I know that people tell me that Resident Evil 3, the story really wasn't that great, and you know what? You wouldn't be too wrong, because honestly, the weak part about Resident Evil 3 was that, yes, it does basically recycle a lot of elements from Resident Evil 2, mainly the environments and some of the story. However, the gameplay is anything but recycled. Resident Evil 3 added a shit ton of cool mechanics. It added branching choices and branching paths. It added the 180 degree turn. It added explosive environmental hazards like explosive barrels, lamps and lanterns you can shoot out. It added the ability to dodge in the game. And it had a lot of more action-like elements that made it very fun. And not to mention, it supported, in my opinion, one of the coolest. Again, this is my opinion. I think it had the most memorable, scariest, coolest villain in the entire series, the Nemesis monster. This monster chases you throughout the entire game, and it was such a breath of fresh air to play that in a Resident Evil game, because there had never been a boss battle, like a boss enemy in a Resident Evil game that would chase you from beginning to end. That's what made Resident Evil 3 really special from the other ones, and in my opinion, I think Resident Evil 3 is actually the scariest one in the series because of that reason alone. And I don't get why people tell me that it's not a memorable game and it wasn't necessary, when I'm like, what? Yes, it was necessary, because it shows you the destruction of Raccoon City. You actually play a lot and more in the city than in Resident Evil 2, because Resident Evil 2 you're in the city for a bit, but in this one you're actually more in the city. And again, this is going to be a massive spoiler, so if you don't want to hear any more about this, I am going to spoil Resident Evil 3. The game ends with Raccoon City blowing up. How is this game not considered memorable? It supported one of the greatest villains in the entire series. It had one of the best endings in the entire series by having Raccoon City get blown up in a very cool finale. And in my opinion, again, I think that the game is very, very underappreciated. Gameplay-wise, it is the best one of the survival horror / tank control era of Resident Evil. It had the best gameplay, in my opinion. The only thing I'll admit that it had its flaws in was its story and some of the characters. I understand that some of the characters weren't really great, mainly the mercenaries characters. They weren't really that great characters, they weren't really memorable, and they were kind of stereotypes. They weren't as good as some of the characters in Resident Evil 1 and 2, I get that. But why did it become so popular to just shit on Resident Evil 3 when it did so much, it did so many good things for the series? And I hate that people always tell me, well, it's not as good as Resident Evil 2, it's not as good as Resident Evil 2. Do people bring up Resident Evil 2 and say, well, it's not as good as Resident Evil 1? No, you don't hear people say that, because it's not fair. You shouldn't really compare it to the previous one. You should only compare it to the previous one as a point of quality reference, not, oh, well, it's not the same characters as RE2, or it's not the same environments like RE2, or it doesn't have that same consistency like Resident Evil 2 did, and it doesn't have the same pacing. Like, no, it's not trying to be Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 3 is its own beast entirely. It's trying to be its own thing. And right now, I am telling you this. If you're one of the people that like to shit on Resident Evil 3, no offense, but it's not cool because honestly, there was nothing really wrong with the original Resident Evil 3. Again, the game does have its flaws, like I said. I'm not saying that the game was perfect. I'm not trying to be a fanboy about the original Resident Evil 3. I'll admit it had its flaws, like I said. I will admit the soundtrack to the game isn't as memorable as RE2 or 1's, but it's still a good soundtrack. And again, some of the characters, mainly the mercenaries characters, they're not really as memorable as, say, like Barry from the Resident Evil 1 game, or Wesker from Resident Evil 1, or William Birkin and Sherry from Resident Evil 2, or Ada. I get that. The characters aren't as good as Resident Evil 1 and 2's. But what I don't understand is why are people acting like Resident Evil 3 has always been a bad game and that it's never been good or it's never been memorable. No. I think Resident Evil 3 is kind of underappreciated in that sense where apparently a lot of people think that the game was never great. And again, it's not Resident Evil 2, so it's not a good game. But you know what? No. Resident Evil 3 is awesome. And if anything, the main character, Jill Valentine, it's great to see her continue as a character from the first Resident Evil and see her character develop. So that's not a bad game, and it is necessary because we see Jill's character develop. And again, supports one of the most memorable monsters in the entire series, and it has some of the coolest elements ever put in an old school Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 3 is awesome, and I'm tired of people shitting on it. I'm Rose the Rascal 15, and please show some love for Resident Evil 3. Thank you. But I will admit, Claire Redfield from Resident Evil 2, she's pretty hot. Enough said.